Hi. When I'm teaching, I get asked a lot of questions about chords. Why are chords constructed the way that they are? What makes a major chord, what makes a minor chord, and so on. So I'm going to get around in due course to doing some tutorials on here explaining the basics of chord construction. What I wanted to do today though is just talk about one particular type of chord, quite a simple chord. That's the power chord, which you'll hear used a lot in rock music and heavy metal and styles like that. It's quite easy to play, and if you play those sorts of styles of music, it's one you really do need to know. Okay, now most chords will have a minimum of 3 notes. Power chords are a little bit different. There's only two degrees in them, a root note and a 5th degree. So if you think about a major scale, say A major, we take the root note and the 5th note there, play those 2 notes together. Those give us a power chord. Normally though, you'll hear a power chord played with the root degree, the 5th degree, and the root degree an octave higher, which gives us 3 notes. It's only actually 2 scalar degrees, an A and an E in this case, a 1 and a 5, and that A repeated an octave higher. But adding the octave higher root note just gives the chord a fuller sound. That probably sounds quite familiar to you if you listen to rock music. You'll have heard power chord, in all sorts of different songs. In terms of fingering, it's fairly straightforward. It just looks like this. Okay, so that's quite a useful shape because you can move it to different positions just depending on where that root note is. So this fingering here, we've got an A on the bottom E string as the root note, gives us an A power chord. But if I move that so the root note is on a G and play the same shape, G on the bottom E string at the 3rd fret, G power chord, move it so the root note's on the 7th fret on the E string, there's a B note, gives us a B power chord, and so on. Now that shape is quite useful because you can move it. Not only does it work on, say, the bottom 3 strings, it also works on the strings 3, 4 and 5. So I can take the same shape that I was using before, say same shape, so with the D root note, D 5th fret on the A string here, and play that same shape, D, A and D again, gives me a D power chord. That shape's movable. It changes slightly when we go on to the 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings, so I've got the root note on the 4th. Just because of the way the guitar's tuned, I actually end up with a fingering that looks like this. Okay, so that chord there, I'm playing a G, 5th fret on the D string with that shape. It gives me a G, a D and a G. It gives me a G power chord. So same formula, 1, 5 and octave, but slightly different fingering just because of the way the chords, the fingerboard's laid out. When you're learning chords, normally like open position chords and so on, C majors and G majors and so on, when you're practicing, you wouldn't normally just play a chord shape and then just strum away on it. What you really tend to practice is changes. So the way you move between chords in a progression, say like a C major to an A minor, D minor, G major, you tend to practice those changes. Power chords you might think going to be a bit easier because you've only got a limited number of fingerings. So I can play an E power chord, a C power chord, D power chord, E power chord, all with the same fingering. All I'm doing is moving that shape around the neck. And that's true, but you still need to be careful that you're accurate with your left hand. So what you tend to practice, I think, when you're playing power chords as part of your daily practice routine, is moving the shape around the neck precisely, accurately. So if you're going from an E power chord to a D power chord to a C power chord, making sure that you make the transition accurately and smoothly, and you land in the target fret. You're not overshooting or undershooting as you're moving your hand up and down the neck. Okay, something else that's useful to bear in mind when you're playing power chord patterns is to think about muting the notes with your right hand, like that fleshy bit on the side of your picking hand, resting that ever so slightly on the strings of the bridge. Playing the chord so it rings out, and bringing your hand down slightly to mute the strings to give a more percussive sound. Yeah, so that is more useful, I think, for rhythm patterns. It's a really useful shape, so spend a bit of time getting that under your fingers and getting familiar with it. Come up with some progressions of your own that you can play through. Something that's quite common, argument's sake, in the key of E. You'll be going from an E power chord, a D, a C, and a B, and then back up to the E chord again and repeating the pattern. Well, we're looking at that example in the key of E minor. I mentioned we've got that bottom E string open. It's got quite nice for that to play that progression, but droning away on the bottom E string with a muted percussive chugging pattern. Give you something like this. Okay, one last example I'll leave you with is a really interesting fingering of an A power chord. It starts off quite simply just using A as the root note on the bottom A, on the A string, and using the index finger of the left hand fretting at the second fret the D and the G strings to give us a E and an A. So that's a fairly common fingering for an A, open position A power chord. But if you think about the notes in an A power chord, the fifth degree is an E, and we've got a bottom E string here, so we can play that to thicken it up a little bit on the bottom end. And looking at the top strings, we're playing the notes here on the 6th, 5th, 4th and 3rd strings. There's a E if we fret at the 5th fret on B string, and there's an A if we fret at the 5th fret on the E string. So if we put all that together, we get this fingering. Which is a very full 6-string power chord. Still only 2 notes, only an A and an E, but repeated in different octaves to give us that really big sound. Okay, so that's the power chord. Get familiar with the shape, get familiar with the way it sounds, practice it, come up with some chord progressions of your own. So in the future I'm going to do some more tutorials talking about chord construction in general, so don't get too hung up for now. If you're not into chord construction, you don't understand the theory, don't worry yourself too much about I'm talking about 1st degrees and 5th degrees. Just play and practice the power chord for what it is. It's a 1 and a 5, and get familiar with the sound of that. I'm currently working on a new version of PhatPhish, which is going to include power chord in the chords and arpeggios section. So once that's ready, I'll get that uploaded to the website for you to see, and get a copy for yourself so you can use PhatPhish to show your fingerings, different positions for power chords around the guitar neck. Take that away and practice it. Hopefully you'll get some use out of the power chord. If you play rock music, I'm sure you will, because it's a very common chord type in rock. So hope you found that useful, and hopefully I'll catch up with you in another tutorial very soon. Bye for now.